So today I'm going to talk about proactive security. When you're looking at proactive security, you need to know what risks do you have within your organization. If you don't know your risks, you can't manage them and you can't be proactive. Because what you're going to be proactive about? There's nothing, you can't action it. So I'm also a little bit different from all my other colleagues today that's presenting. I'm brave enough to do a live demo. So please bear with me as we run through this today. So here on the screen you will see is the Trend Micro Vision 1 platform. And you will see there's something called the Cyber Risk Index. Now why do we have the Cyber Risk Index? Simple reason. Guys, it's so easy to communicate back to the business a number. If I tell you 100 is high risk, 1 is low risk, and you're presenting back to the business and say, look, we're sitting on 80. Our risk score is 80. Very easy to understand, right? Very easy to share this information with back to your business. Even in government sector, I've got lots of government customers that I work with, not just in South Africa, but actually across the entire continent. Very large departments and ministries, 50,000 endpoints and users and up, where we work with that's using this type of technology to identify what risks they have within their organization. So like I said, here you'll see is a number 65.7. How we measure this, like I mentioned earlier, 100 is high risk and 1 is low risk. On the right-hand side over here, you'll be able to see how the organization is doing over time frame. So I'm measuring it over time. Why? Because then I can see whatever I'm doing to reduce my risk is working. If I don't measure it over time frame, I can't see the activities that I'm doing is helping to reduce the risk within the organization. I can also click here on compare with other organizations. This is really cool because you might just see the screen and you'd be like, okay, I know Trend is saying 65 is medium risk, but how is my peers doing? So here you'll be able to see my demo environment is on 58 here. Other organizations that's my size is on 28, so there's already a problem here because I'm higher. The regional average, everybody in Namibia, what are they doing? What's their risk score? Is 34. And then, of course, industry average. So if you're in the banking sector, financials, government, whatever it might be, I'll give you an industry average benchmark. So you can compare how you're doing against other organizations. All right. Next thing that you might ask me is, okay, fair enough, that's the risk score, but how do you calculate it? What's behind this risk score? So you'll see there's a couple of components that we take into consideration. The first one is account compromise. Okay, what do I do here? I go on the dark web and I look for company data. I look for email addresses and passwords and things like that. As soon as I get it, I will notify you and I'll tell you this is the data that I found and you need to do something about it. Now, to share some use cases with you and knowledge that I've gathered over the years, what would happen is a user would go on Netflix. I'm not dissing Netflix. It's just an example. They will create a Netflix account. Okay. But what they would do is they would use the same password for Netflix as with Active Directory, as for the Gmail, everywhere. They would use the same password. Because we're users, we people of habit. We don't necessarily want to make our life complex. Okay, so what happens is Netflix is breached. The email address is taken because I'm using my company email address. Plus, technically, my AD password is taken as well because I'm using the same password everywhere. So that's a really, really big problem that we have. So even if another organization is breached and your company details are used or is listed there, I will tell you and I'll notify you. And then I do other cool things like I check where people are logging in from. Meaning if you're in Windhoek and Joburg and you log in within 10 minutes, that's a problem. You can't be at Windhoek and Joburg, of course, in 10 minutes. That means either two things are happening. First one being is you're using VPN, or second one is your account is being compromised, or somebody's trying to use it. Then moving on to the next one, vulnerabilities. Does anybody know vulnerabilities? Not really. kind of an idea. I'm sure I see some heads going, okay. So vulnerabilities essentially is a gap in software, and I exploit that vulnerability to gain access or foothold into your organization. So what do we do here is we look at what vulnerabilities you have within your organization. Okay, we rate it for you. So we'll tell you what type of vulnerabilities we can see. So if I scroll down a little bit, you'll see over here. There's the CVEs. I'll tell you the severity. I'll tell you, are they actively being exploited? Meaning I'm seeing a lot of attackers using this vulnerability. And I'll tell you what OS application is affected, what's the impact score, and then you'll see there's something called prevention rules. So prevention rules is where I actually protect you from this vulnerability up until you install the patch. Okay. So when you install Windows updates and patches and things, you're actually closing vulnerabilities. And with this technology, what I'm doing is, even if you haven't patched, I will close that vulnerability up until you are able to patch and close that specific vulnerability. Okay, next one, activities and behaviors. This is also a very interesting one. Why? Because I'm looking at what your users are doing. I'm looking at when are they working. Are they working from 8 to 5 every day? Why is this guy suddenly working on Sunday night at 1 o'clock? It's weird. It's not his normal behavior. We look at where people are accessing, from which areas they're accessing your data center. If it's from different IP addresses and things like that. So in a nutshell, we're looking at the behavior of users and what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. Another use case, let's say I see suddenly somebody is transferring 1 terabyte of data from his laptop, or from one location to another location. Why is that happening? This is not something that everybody would do on a day-to-day basis. Then the other component we look at as well is public cloud activity. This is a really nice technology for me, because it shows me all the cloud applications that you are using within your organization. My government customers, financial customers, these are guys, and also medical customers, medical aid, or medical industry, like this technology, because let's say you're using Office 365. If you're using Office 365, this means that you are putting all your data in OneDrive. Okay? Problem is, if I start allowing users to use Google Drive or Dropbox, whatever, I can start putting data into those cloud applications. It's cloud and storage applications. Okay? I can share it and I can do whatever I want. Okay? And as soon as I do that, that data goes outside of the country's borders. No longer in your control, you are no longer the administrator. It's out. It's done. So knowing what cloud storage applications users are using is super, super important, especially from a compliancy perspective and data governance perspective. We need to know what people are doing, and we need to restrict them from using certain cloud applications. Then from a system configuration perspective, what we do is we look at your identity provider. Let's use Active Directory as an example. So what we'll do is we will do an assessment on it. And we'll say, okay, these are all the accounts that you have that's got no multi-factor authentication. These are all the accounts that you have that's got weak passwords associated to it. These are all the stale accounts you have. You might ask me, what's a stale account? A stale account is an account that's active but hasn't been used in 6 months. So why is the account still active? For example, my financial customers, they've got PCI regulations. They need to keep, like, for example, in Active Directory, the workstation in AD. They disable it, but you have to keep it in AD for a certain period of time before they can delete it. But it has to be deactivated, though, okay, because of PCI. So we do a full assessment here. We also look at pseudo accounts, meaning we look at if a user inadvertently got higher privileges that he was supposed to get using AD groups. Okay. Then XDR detection. So what's XDR? XDR and EDR basically works hand in hand. EDR is endpoint detection response. Gives me the capability to see attacks and do investigations. Okay, and evict the attacker. Because in some cases the attacker will still have a foothold within your organization. As soon as you start detecting him, he'll just stop. He'll wait. And maybe 6 months later he will start again. The problem is with EDR, it's only showing me a small component of the picture. What if the attacker moves from one machine to next, to next, to next? I need to correlate that information so I can get a full picture. And that's where XDR comes into play. That's your correlation technology. Okay, so I'm sure you guys have seen those CSI stories, where they show you the board, and you've got all the pictures, and you've got the lines, and this is the bad guy. Oh, apologies. And this is the bad guy, and he's got other generals that's connecting to him, and so on and so forth, And these investigators use kind of these boards to understand how everything fits together when they do the investigation. That is what we're doing on a cybersecurity level. We connect the dots using technology. So we can understand how the attacker got in, what did he touch, and how can we get him out again, get him out of our environment. How do we respond to this? Gives you that visibility. Then, of course, from a threat detection perspective, this will definitely form part of a company risk score. You might say, why? It's just a malware, it's just a worm or something like that, it's a backdoor. It really depends on what type of threats, firstly. For example, if it's a very dangerous ransomware, we need to understand why. Why did this get into our environment in the first place? What guardrails do we need to put up? For example, this is an old school example actually, we should not allow USB flash sticks. You cannot allow it. Why? Because I can drop a flash stick at any of these buildings, anybody that picks it up and plugs it in, my malware will execute. Or in some cases, if you look at if you go down the espionage route and government route, some attacks was created so, I would say, so good that it will only detonate, or sophisticated is actually what I was looking for. It was so sophisticated that it will only detonate at a certain point in time when there's a specific trigger. And that attack was designed to attack offline devices that's air-gapped, that doesn't have any network connection. Okay, so threat detection is very important, and we will take that into consideration as well when it comes to the company risk score. Then the security configuration part. So what's this all about? Well, we audit ourselves. The product audits itself, and it will tell you, hey, you have made an error in your security configuration which is negatively affecting you. Because we don't want to get to a point where you are attacked or something bad happens, and then we say, okay, but you never switched this function on. Oh, but I didn't know about this function. That's why it forms part of this risk score, to tell you there's certain components that you need to switch on, that you haven't switched on. If you haven't switched on because there's a specific reason, use case, business case, whatever, it's fine. You can accept the risk. So you can on the system say, I accept it, but we still need to notify you that this exists. And then predictive analytics. So what's this all about? This is our AI technology that kicks in. I love this tech because it will show me attack paths. So if you're not familiar what attack path is, it will show you what paths exist within the organization to get to critical assets. So for example, I would exploit a specific vulnerability or something like that, which leads me to that machine. I can use this user, and essentially I can get to a critical asset. Okay, so in the solution, we rate all of your assets, every single one. And we automatically identify which ones are critical. You won't see now, maybe you will later when I click somewhere else, but some of the devices would have stars next to it, which is a critical asset. So I want to know if there's any way to get to those critical assets from any point. And if I know about this proactively, before somebody else figures it out, I can close that gap. I can respond, and I can basically kill that road. So that is essentially how we built out this risk score, and this is how we get to this 65.7. Now, if we go to attack surface discovery over here, you will see that there's devices, internet-facing assets, accounts, applications, cloud assets, and APIs. So every single device in your organization, there's some stars. You see, this is critical assets. Of course, this is our lab environment, but these are critical assets because this is a domain control, as example. So if I click on this machine over here, you'll see every single device gets a risk score as well. So every single device is analyzed using the same principle. That's why I kind of started with the company risk score, so you can understand what all of these components now mean. So if I have a device that has got XDR detections and maybe there's account compromise or vulnerabilities, whatever the case might be, it will push the risk score of that device up. And I can do other cool things. I can start making decisions. So if the risk score of a device is high, I can, for example, start denying access. I can do something with this. Or I can do other things like if it's a vulnerability, I can patch the machine to reduce the risks on this machine itself. If I click yet on these 3 little dots, you'll see that there's different actions that I can take. All of these actions can be automated. So meaning I can have a playbook and I can say if these conditions are met, take these actions automatically for me. But you can manually go here into the response portion. Here you can isolate an endpoint. Meaning if you have a laptop and you're going home, something bad happens, boom, I isolate your laptop, I take it off your own Wi-Fi network. Do my investigation, and I'll bring it back up. Okay, so we always have control over our machines. I also have remote shell capabilities, and I can run custom scripts as well. So I can connect to this box anytime, and I can start with any investigations that I need to do. So we've got full access. There's the asset risk graph, so we start building out how assets are communicating with each other, who's using what type of assets. Cloud applications, so what cloud applications are being used on these machines, what local applications are being used on these machines. I work with a lot of customers, and at a certain point you become more like an advisor, and that's when we start turning the tap. We start reducing privileges and rights that users has got on their machines. Why? Because the more applications we allow on our machines, the more security risks we have, the more patching administration we have to do. So, like for example, if you see on this machine, all of these applications are running. Should we allow all of them actually to run? Is it necessary for all of them to run? Should we start taking more control here and reduce all of these, or reduce the rights of the apps that they can run on this box? And then also, I can see all the users that's using this machine. This is the asset profile. This is what I was talking about earlier. We will do asset assessment, in which you can see that this asset is rated as a critical asset. And then, of course, we can also see the policy that's assigned to the specific machine. So this is more of a type of a granular level, but it just shows you what we do on every single machine within the organization. Then, internet facing. What do we do here? So from an internet facing perspective, we scan your environment from the outside inwards. Okay? We look at all the domains that you have. We look at all the ports that's open. We look at all the certificates you're using, ciphers that you're using. All of that information will be available to you. Many times I've seen that a change has been made on a firewall, a device that's supposed to protect the perimeter. Inadvertently, there might have been a change made and certain ports are being opened. Okay? And if you are not the firewall administrator, you will not know about this. Nobody would know about this. So this gives you that view from the outside inwards. How does my organization look? And what security risks can I see there that I need to mitigate? Also from a vulnerability perspective, I'll tell you all the vulnerabilities that I see publicly, which is of course very, very dangerous. We don't want any vulnerabilities publicly available because we can exploit those vulnerabilities. So we'll show you all of the vulnerabilities that we can see from the internet-facing side as well. From an accounts perspective, guys, what we do here as well, similar to on the devices, every single account gets a risk rating. And like I mentioned earlier, you can see there's a map at the bottom of the screen. I look at where you're logging in from. I look which apps are you using from where. So I monitor these things because I'm looking for suspicious activities. Okay? But you can see over here again, account compromise, activity behavior, all of these different components form part of the specific user's risk score. Again, if I click here on the 3 little dots, you'll see that there's some actions that I can take. Again, all of these actions can be automated. You don't have to manually do this. But you'll see you can disable user account, force sign out, force password reset. Why is this helpful? If something happens at 10 o'clock at night, account is compromised or something like that, the system can make a decision and say, this is my playbook based on these conditions. I'm going to force sign you out of all of your devices, and I'm going to go ahead and do a force password reset. Okay, it also reduces the load that we have between our normal, different teams, especially if you don't have a lot of manpower behind you. You want the solution to start making decisions for you. So, in this use case, IT administrator sees that there's something weird happening on this user account, but cybersecurity administrator, thank you so much, does not have the rights, for example, to disable user account. It has to go to AD administrator. That means I need to call somebody, or I need to send an email. Hey, I have the security risk, guys, you need to take action for me, please. Only then it happens. So what we're trying to reduce here is something called mean time to respond. Okay? How quickly can we respond to these things? How quickly can we take action? All right, then again, from an asset risk graph perspective, I'm going to look at what this user is doing, what is he interacting with. I'm going to look at the applications, the applications that this user is using, from which country is this user using these applications. You can see that this guy sits in Joburg. Sometimes there's my colleagues in Kenya, Nigeria, that's using my lab, so you will see detections there as well, or even my colleagues in Mauritius or in Cape Town. But you will see how these different activities are occurring. Then from a devices perspective, I will tell you all the devices that's linked to the specific account, even mobile devices. So if you have mobile devices and you have PCs and you have tablets and whatever it might be, everything will sit here and I'll be able to say, hey, this user has got all 4 or 5 of these devices. It makes it very easy for me to understand what's happening within my organization. And then, of course, asset profile. Every single account has got an asset profile. If I, for example, you guys saw account compromise earlier, right? So let's say I see that the CEO's account has been compromised. There's going to be a higher risk event that gets generated. Why? Because the CEO account is critical, plus there's account compromise that comes with it together. So this is something that's super important. We need to action this very, very quickly. We need to do something about this. All right. Okay. Then from an applications perspective, we covered this very briefly earlier. You'll see these are all the public cloud applications, and the use case I used earlier. You see there's cloud and computing platform and storage. You see there's many different categories, even artificial intelligence. Why do we want to know if people are using AI apps? Because you can share data there, colleagues. Like you can be a personal assistant. Apologies if there's a personal assistant listening. It's just an example that needs to write a very nice corporate email, but I need help to make this email look like very nice. But the information that's in there is confidential. So what do? I put all of that information into an AI engine. It generates a nice output for me, but the data sits there, and it's not in your control anymore. You can't do anything about it. So we need to know what AI apps people are using and also stop people from sharing critical, confidential information with these AI apps. Yeah, we need to do something about it. So it's important to have that type of visibility. Now, if you look at this cloud and sharing and storage example that I used earlier, there you can see it live on the screen. Okay, So you can see there's OneDrive for Business. If I use Office 365, I want to see OneDrive for Business only there. I don't want to see Dropbox or Google Drive or anything else like that. Okay? Because that means that data can be stored, like I mentioned earlier, anywhere in the world. It can be shared with anybody, and you do not have control anymore. Within OneDrive for Business, as an example, when the data is in there, you have an Office 365 administrator. That guy controls anything and everything that's around Office 365. So if you leave the organization, boom, I disable your AD account, you don't have access to OneDrive anymore, data is mine. Okay? If I let users use Google Drive, you do get Google Drive for Business, but I'm using more the example of a private Google Drive account or Dropbox. Data is uploaded in Google Drive, Dropbox. You don't know about it. Data can be shared with anybody, and the data can be shared with even without a password. Because you're not controlling how the data can be shared. For example, OneDrive, you can say, when you share data, it has to meet these compliancy levels. It has to be password, and. I can share data with other cloud storage sharing applications however I want, essentially. So it's important to have this type of visibility. Again, on the local apps, I'll touch this very briefly. Why is this important? If you allow your users to run 5 different browsers, you need to patch 5 different browsers. Why? Because 5 different browsers, all of them will have vulnerabilities. It's going to be a massive, massive administrative task for you to do. So you're going to want to have a look and view what applications people are using and start limiting what applications they can use. Start standardizing on what applications are allowed and what applications are not allowed. My standard, for example, in Business A is you can only use Google Chrome. You cannot use Firefox, Brave, Opera, whatever it might be. Because I need to secure this environment, it sits with me, and I'm allowing you to use these applications. And with all of these applications, there's always vulnerabilities and things that you need to essentially patch. Then from a cloud asset perspective, if you are using any cloud providers, it's important to understand how those environments are set up. Okay? So, to give you a use case, usually there's multiple different teams that's working on these different cloud environments. And you've got many hands there, and a lot of people doing different configurations, spinning things up, shutting things down, and so on and so forth. Now again, I'm security guys, I'm looking at it from a security perspective, and I'm going grey. Why? Because so many hands, so many people can do so many things, and you do not have any visibility. You cannot see if there's any misconfiguration. You cannot see how this environment is set up. And this is what tech is. This tech is designed to do, is to tell you, hey, according to the well-architected framework from Microsoft or from AWS, this is how the environment should be set up. You're violating that architecture with this specific configuration, and this is how you need to rectify it. This is what you need to do. You see? So it helps you to get you that visibility. So it's almost like a live auditing tool. If I put it very, very high level, it's always checking what's happening within the environment, what configuration is occurring, and what changes do I need to make to reduce, again, the risk of my organization. That's why all of these things are proactive security. It's trying to show you what areas you need to focus on before something bad happens. That's why all of this analysis is happening all the time. And then from an API perspective, we also look at if you are using any APIs, how are they configured? Is there any risks associated with the specific APIs that you are using? Any questions so far? Because I'm going relatively quickly through this. Okay, all right. So if there isn't any questions, ladies and gentlemen, that is my session for proactive security. If you, like I said, if you do want that Formula One Lego car, not real, yes sir? You want a question? So we don't do patch management today. What we do is something called virtual patching, or HIPS. There's different acronyms for it. And what we do, and I'll quickly click there for you so you can see. What we do is we would, for example, we would scan the box. Okay, let's say it's a server 2000 or whatever, or server 2000 is way too old, but 2012, whatever it might be, and up. We scan the box. So, okay, this is the operating system. It hasn't been patched in so long. These are the applications that's running on it. Okay. This is the vulnerabilities that I'm detecting on these machines. And then what I do is I apply rules to that machine, OS and application rules, to protect you from those vulnerabilities up until you are able to patch. So meaning the risk exists. You'll see here, like there's prevention rules. You see this one over here, there's 3 prevention rules. I'll still report it, even though I have something in place to help protect you. Okay, the risk exists, but I'm covering that vulnerability up until you patch. So meaning somebody won't be able to exploit that vulnerability. So one of the use cases is if you have prod environments that's very, very critical, you can't just install patches. Sometimes there might be custom applications running on these boxes, which makes things a little bit more complicated. So you need a little bit more time to patch the box, but yet you sit with this risk. So it's that, if you work in this world, it's that the business is telling me, don't be insecure, but the business is also telling me, I need to patch and not break the boxes. So you're kind of in that world, you're being pulled apart. And this tech is designed to give you a bit of a break in the sense that change your patch cycle to maybe end of the month. Or, you are protected up until it is your patch cycle. It's okay. You can breathe. We see the vulnerability, we know about it, but there's rules, prevention rules and things in place to protect you from it. Another question. Sorry, custom? Custom assessment evaluation. Apologies. Getting old.
Yeah, the question is actually, so in regards to you guys not actually having to do patch management, that means that you also don't do the custom assessment and remediation.
Yes, so the assessment part is the scanning part that I was talking about earlier. Because I'm assessing, and we're talking more on vulnerability still, right? I'm just making sure. Okay, so on the assessment side, I'm doing the assessment because I'm looking for all the vulnerabilities. The remediation, yes, we also do, because we've got the prevention rules that comes into place. We call it prevention rules in our terminology. But we've got the prevention rules, and this is all automated processes. It's not like you go manually say, okay, this box hasn't been patched in 5 years, and I've got click 10,000 rules, to apply. It will scan, say, okay, this is my set, and apply my set. So it does it detects, if you can put it like that, and then it automatically applies the rules for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? In the back.
So my choice is just how does Trend differentiate itself from other cybersecurity solutions in Namibia?
Yeah, very good question. Happy to answer that. Remember I spoke about XDR earlier. Remember I spoke about correlation. Right? And the attack map, and I want to see how the attack is happening. We have natively built technologies that's on your network, on your endpoint, in Office 365, on your servers, all of these areas, we have these sensors, and we can natively go into these areas, pull the telemetry data, and correlate this information for you. So meaning I don't have to partner with somebody that's doing network inspection and then try to understand how their tech is working, so I can bring it in with my, for example, endpoint protection telemetry data. Because as soon as you start doing investigations, you're touching every single portion of the environment, right? You're most likely going to look at endpoint, you're going to look at your proxy, you're going to look at firewall, you're going to look at your servers, maybe even Office 365, okay? I can plug into all of those areas natively. Even with third-party firewalls, as example, I can send instructions to your 40 checkpoint parallel and say, block this. Because I've seen this happening outside of the environment. So maybe it didn't miss. It's just it's happening at a guy's home with his router. He clicked on something. I send instruction home. I say 40 block it. By the time that user gets to the environment, I'm already integrated on that firewall level. I'm already blocking it. So my integration level is very, very rich. But my XDR components that's built, my network inspection, endpoint inspection, server and Office 365 is natively built by Trend Micro. So I can easily correlate information and easily give you a very detailed map of what is happening. Not this is the portion of the attack that happened on the endpoint. Now I have to go to some other vendor or whatever to get the rest of the picture and then kind of manually puzzle it together. I hope that answers the question for you, sir. Okay. Yes. Yes, sir.
If an organization is deeply invested in the Microsoft ecosystem, wouldn't it make more sense to go for like a Microsoft vendor?
Yeah, so it just depends on what components you're looking at. For example, again, from a networking perspective, I'm plugging into the network layer, and it's a very much deeper a conversation that I think we can do if you want to do like a check this one versus this one, this first one. But my answer would be very similar. It comes down to the native integration component, where we touch all of these different areas, and not everybody does. So again, I would like, for example, tell like network inspection component. Yeah. Well, thank you so much then, everybody. I really appreciated the questions. It was really awesome being here and spending this time with you guys. Again, if you want, like I said, Formula 1 car, please do a session with CS. There's going to be a lucky draw, and there's 2 up for grabs. You're welcome to do so, and again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you.